Hello there, friends and neighbors. My name is Samuel Trapp. I am here broadcasting on International Flavor. Wanted to, uh, over this Memorial Day weekend, perhaps get a show available in the event that I choose not to do a show late at night on Sunday or Monday. And so I wanted to have a potential recording available. And I wanted to talk about some of the interesting events that are going on in the world today. And I'm going to start with a the story of how we get rid of this war in Ukraine and whether it will be gotten rid of at all. Most of us believe that it's not gonna end well for Ukraine. I certainly believe that, and so I think it's important um, to discuss the potential. Now, it's pretty funny because I always say that the old Trumpster has been quite wishy-washy with where he's would like to be with where he really is, um, and whether Rubio is going to be the team playing, resolving problems for the Trump administration, or whether he's just marking time until the neocon and neo-libs that all love their war get back to business as usual. And I'm hoping for the first one and not the second. I'm hoping Trump continues to run the show, but he's such a flip-flopper. Every time somebody whispers in his ear, you get a different reaction. So Zelensky meets him in the Vatican, talks to him for a little bit, and suddenly it's Russia. You gotta agree to an instant ceasefire about everything. Well, Russia's not going to agree to that. They've never done it. Well, then Trump talks to Putin a week and a half later. Well, it was even sooner than that. He spoke to he got word from the Russian side about what was going to happen. Oh, well, Zelensky's got Putin had his Sunday night broadcast, and suddenly Putin is like, yeah, what he said. Go on over to get your butt over to Istanbul and work together to try to resolve this conflict. And then it went back and forth and back and forth. And the latest was the conversation with Putin that took 2 hours, and they've been very congratulatory towards each other. They've talked well about each other. The conversation lasted 2 hours, and Zelensky sitting there going, wait a minute, where's my 2-hour conversation? Well, Ukraine in the big picture isn't very important. They're not going to get 2 hours. They're going to get whatever Trump wishes to give them. And Trump personally doesn't like Zelensky from the popular, what everybody publishes is he don't like him. He thinks he's a bit of a dictator, as he said before. And but according to all reports, the conversation with Putin went very well. They're calling each other Vlad and Donald, and not Mr. President this or Mr. President that. I'd love to see the transcript of this conversation if it ever comes out. And I think, again, probably short term, because Trump will change his mind again as soon as he talks to somebody in Europe, and I think that Rubio and company are on Trump's side, but they're also, I don't want to say playing games in the background, but they're keeping those channels open. The Lindsey Graham, give me some sanctions and give me more military money, and let's keep pumping millions into Kiev, and come on, or billions into Kiev, and let's see what we can do. And it's unfortunate that that is still going on. That needs to be done. And so I don't know. There's so many things to discuss. Here's um, one of the most important is the discussion that they're talking about in the uh, pressuring Kiev over a minerals deal. When that took place, so Deputy Economy Minister Taras Kachka said that Washington exerted intense pressure on Kiev to sign a deal and finalize something, and haven't heard anything about it since, have we? Um, it's There's also a story about getting a fixed percent of the EU's GDP for the Ukrainian military to build up Ukraine's military. They should get a fixed percentage of the GDP. So maybe they could step in and play America. Maybe Ukraine's army could be the American army, and we could have Ukrainian soldiers everywhere, but funded by them. Wouldn't that be neat? Funded by Europe, and let them do it and not America. I think we should have been reducing anyway. Anyway, the article was, excuse me, pretty interesting about the negotiations that they were talking about and on the minerals agreement between Ukraine and the United States. This official said it was like this Taras Kachka said it was something out of a mafia movie. The deal, which was signed in April after months of closed-door talks, created a joint investment fund and granted Washington preferred access to Ukraine's resources. However, it doesn't include security guarantees, and Ukraine wanted those security guarantees and wanted them badly, and they didn't get them. And I mean, what sort of guarantee do you want? I mean, let's talk about, what is it, the Budapest agreements that gives the Ukrainians protection under the nuclear umbrella, arguably, of the West, America, and the East, Russia. I mean, how's that not a security guarantee? You have something that perhaps they should talk about. Maybe if you hadn't been beating up on the Russian language or on Russian nationals in the Donbass, maybe it would be different for you. I don't know. I could be convinced that perhaps what do you call it? The EU provided all the military, and the U.S. kind of backed out. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all. But this natural resources deal is lopsided, certainly in favor of America. But I wonder if they'll ever be able to get anything out of that. My thought process is probably not, especially if the bulk of these what do you call it? Valuable minerals are in the Donbass region, which everybody says. And I've seen some maps of that in Kharkov and some places like that, maybe Dnipropetrovsk area, there's some more, but that the best are in the Donbass region, and Russia's already taken that over. But anyway, this interview, which was published on Thursday, this Kachka guy described the talks as very calm, but very much like the mafia guys in a movie, where powerful figures in suits decide matters of life and death. So he felt like they were seriously pressured to make this deal. Well, they should have been pressured to make a deal. And now that the deal is in place, what has happened since then? When does it enter into force? When are they going to be able to do something? Is it like I think, after the any of the war is resolved, any of it is over? Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, this official, this Kachka, said that, of course, we saw all the Truth Social posts from President Trump, but if you remove emotion, it just indicated a strong interest to have this agreement here and now. he stressed. And Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt noted in March that Trump understands that the American people are sick and tired of footing the bill for this war to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. I am very curious to see what will happen when the current pile of cash of that 60 billion, 61 billion that got approved under the Biden team. When was that? Last summer sometime? Or was it last fall? I can't remember when they approved that 61 billion more. And that money is still going out the door. Now, I've heard from both Rubio and Trump, well, J.D. Vance also had said some things about it that he doesn't believe, or none of them believe, that there's going to be a push for more. But I guarantee as soon as that money runs out, our own military industrial complex is going to be wanting more. And so the Lindsey Grahams of the world will be pushing for more funding for Ukraine, more sanctions for Russia, and that's what they will be doing. So I don't know. This Kochka guy said he was satisfied with the outcome of this minerals agreement. I don't know about that. I think that's what he's going to say, but I don't think that I don't think they'll be all that satisfied until the war is over. And Trump thought he might be able to use this to help end the war, is what it seemed like when they were negotiating it. That, well, if the Russians are interfering with our ability to access these minerals, maybe that would, that's going to force us to do something more. What are we looking for? American boots on the ground? That ain't going to happen. I can't imagine that would take place. And if it did, I think that would be an enormous mistake. So I don't know that the minerals deal means all that much to anybody. But in Russia, former President Dmitry Medvedev, who's now the secretary or deputy chairman in the Security Council, said Trump finally forced Kiev to pay for its U.S. aid with its own natural wealth. From now on, they'll have to trade away the resources of a vanishing country in exchange for military supplies. Now, I've heard some numbers, and I've tried to keep track of these numbers in great respect for the when the numbers are how many people are left in Ukraine. So Ukraine had a population of approximately 40 million, 44 million, something like that. And the fact is that there are estimates. Now, the least or the most that you hear, which is the least that have left the country, the least that you hear is about 8 to 10 million. That 8 to 10 million people have left Ukraine. And so let's say there were 44 million before. So you take off 8 to 10, and you're already at 35 million. And I'm not sure that it's not quite a bit more than that. I have heard numbers that go all the way to somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 million left, 24 million left in Ukraine right now. And it's very interesting to know what those real numbers are real time. I know that the U.S. claims to have brought in 70,000, and that's all, Ukrainians into the U.S. It seems to me like quite a bit more than that. Well, especially in Florida. They've all moved here. That's not true, but I've heard numbers that across Europe, there's some 6 million Ukrainians across Europe. Russia says that they issued somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.4 million new passports to people in these regions that are now Russian passport holders. And that number to me seems a little bit low. Who knows what the real numbers are? All I know is that nobody seems to be able to come up with a concrete number of how many people have left Ukraine or been killed in Ukraine. So that'll be interesting to see what comes of the peace talks, especially after we have all the discussion over the past couple of weeks since the meeting in Istanbul and deciding to swap 1,000 for 1,000. I've heard tell that 1,000 POWs were all the POWs that Kiev had from Russia, but that the Russians are holding somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 Ukrainians. And so Russia would do a one-for-one swap, but they wouldn't swap all for all. And, you know, on that note, this idea that nobody knows or nobody's heard the demands of Russia, I don't see this ending soon, and I don't see it ending well for Ukraine at all. The fact is that the demands are the demands. Now, an old Zelensky was creating his own resolution for these resolution. You can call it what you want. He wanted to call it a resolution, but basically it's the forcing Russia to surrender scenario, which he has been pumping for so long. You know, it's time for Russia to surrender in the view of Zelensky. And Russia doesn't feel that way, obviously. And so here's Zelensky cruising the planet, going to Switzerland, and well, going everywhere. He's going all these places talking about his peace plan. Then he's talking about his victory plan. And then he's having meetings with other heads of state in Europe, and the heads of Europe all come to Kiev, and they all talk about basically the capitulation of Russia, the demands that they have for Russia. And Russia's had demands, but who has listened to them? Who has even considered the position of Russia at all? Very few. And in fact, nobody. Those of us who talk about it are, I don't know, are Putin lovers, are useful idiots for Putin, and we are discounted to a different level, relegated to a different level. So I wanted to talk about drones as well, because the drone attacks on Russia are still ongoing, and daily Kiev has been pounding Russia, inside of Russia, with drones, with missiles, sending a certain number. Well, Russia has been threatening a response and threatening to do something. And I think it seems to me that over the last few days, maybe as much as a week, that when Ukraine sends over 500 drones, Russia responds with 500 drones. Last night and the day before, they were talking about 1,000 drones that were released inside of Russia by Kiev, that to go in and ship these things and control them from Ukraine. 1,000 of them. Overnight, last night, Russia released 1,000 drones of their own, in response. And Russia keeps talking about the response that they will give. I think it should be, if that's what they're doing, I think it's a good idea. I think if you track 90 drones, you ought to the next morning send over 90 drones and then make sure that everybody knows it and say, well, we're going to destroy this and this and this. And there's not much you can do about it. Or maybe send over a list of stuff you're going to bomb so that people can leave and say, we don't want to kill people, so please leave, but we're coming and we're going to blow up this, and this. Because Russian air defense allegedly tracks the bulk of the uh, Ukrainian drones coming in, but not so, not necessarily so on the Ukrainian side. And so these attacks continue. And I think that every day you should say that Lavrov, Putin, Peskov, whoever, Zakharova, she can stand up and say, well, last night the Kiev regime sent 127 drones and rockets our way. So in response, we sent 127 drones and rockets their way. And every day the same thing. And we targeted military, they targeted our buses, our civilian housing, our whatever. And here's what we are targeting, because Ukrainian air defense is a horror story. Marco Rubio was asked about our weapons and how many of our weapons and how do we get the Ukrainians more patriots. And he goes, we don't have enough of our own patriots. We're trying to find, see if Europe can send some over, and they wouldn't be against it. But if Europe gives up their patriots to Ukraine, suddenly Europe doesn't have any, and they're already tapped. I mean, they have nothing out there to share. And so no more weapons. And that's, par for the course. You've used them all. And every time more weapons come along, Russia just destroys them. And they're destroying patriots. I saw a very interesting article. What was that, on Telegram? Or might have been RT. I don't remember. That they were talking about how many drones were coming over. So if Russia wants to send over 500 drones, and 400 of them are decoy drones with no attack, all of the air defense has to be used to attack drones that aren't carrying any weapons. Well, that's even worse if they ever have to use a Patriot on one of them. So $1 million Patriot missile has to be used to take down a $5,000 or 500, 5,000. I think it's $5,000 drone. And so Russia will send over 40 $5,000 drones. I think it was $500 drones, because I remember thinking it was only $20,000, but it might have been 5,000 a piece and $200,000. But either way, you send over 200,000, 400, or you send over 500, 499 go past, and one of them gets blown out of the sky by $1 million Patriot, and the other 499 are still going their way. And you just cost Ukraine and the United States $1 million to fire a scarce Patriot missile. And meanwhile, you've done that for $20,000. But even if they're 5,000 a piece and it's 200,000, the equation is still the same. You have a huge difference between what Russia is able to do and accomplish through these drones, and the reverse in Ukraine, because they aren't winning, and they're also having to waste all of their resources just on a war of attrition. It's a numbers war, and everybody's known forever that Ukraine cannot win it. They just, if everybody's losing 1,000 people a day, some people say that that's what Ukraine is losing, 1,000 a day, then on average. And if Russia, let's say Russia's losing the same, but Russia is recruiting 30 to 60,000 people a month, new recruits. And Kiev is rounding them up in the streets, beating the shit out of them, pardon the expression, and throwing them in a uniform and sending them to the front. And these people aren't interested in fighting. They're poorly trained, extremely low motivation among the troops, and they're press ganged into service, and they have to deal with that fact, and it makes it kind of difficult for them to recruit in the numbers that they need to. But the Russian team, on the other hand, if they're recruiting the numbers of 30 to 60,000 a month, and their losses, let's say in a horror story of a day, they're 1,000 a day. I don't think it's that high, but even if it is, they are at least able to maintain the troop levels and replacement levels that are necessary. And Ukraine absolutely is not able to do the same. And so therefore the attrition war will be won by Russia and not Kiev. And the money war will be won by Russia and not Kiev. And a note on sanctions. Here we are in America with the Lindsey Graham types all wanting their sanctions. We need more sanctions. Well, Putin actually laughed it off last week and said, in a battle of idiots, these guys would lose, and so they'd place number 2 in the battle of idiots. And frankly, you can't help but respect that position, because it's absolutely true, especially on the European side. The Europeans, they're accomplishing very, very little with all of their discussions. Kaja Kallas shows up with $1 billion for Ukraine. And what is it changing? You don't have any weapons to hand over. It's like, and when you do accumulate weapons, you put them all in one group and Russia blows them up. There's been stories of the F-16 getting damaged. The Abrams hasn't done very well. None of the Western equipment has survived the Russian onslaught in technology. The drones aren't working at the same level. The fiber optic drones for Russian side are doing very well. And well, the Ukrainians do have some of those too. I mean, there's plenty of talk of that, but we're wondering what can occur. Kiev is sending over more drones, and only to destabilize the peace talks, the peace negotiations. So you'll have a prisoner swap. That's why Russia's taking it so very slow. And you'll have a prisoner swap, and Ukraine will agree to it. And Russia now has said, well, we'll have a detailed plan for you as soon as the prisoner swap is done. Show us that you can do this, and we will give you our peace proposal. And then the Ukrainian peace proposal is already being discussed, which is basically, Russia, you lose. And that's that. So I don't think peace is coming anytime soon. Let's just leave it at that, okay? And I don't think it's going to happen. Well, friends and neighbors, I thank you for your participation in the show today. My name is Samuel Trapp, and this is International Flavor. These shows are on my webpage, internationalflavor.com. So where you can download past podcasts. I'm on the radio, damradio.com/live, Sunday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Check us out and have a good day.